Okay, think for a moment about something really everyday, like a glass of milk,
Or cheese, yeah.
right? Or cheese or ice cream. Simple stuff. Seems simple anyway.
Hmm.
But behind these things, there's this absolutely enormous global industry.
Truly staggering scale, yeah.
So today, that's where we're doing a deep dive into the global dairy market.
Sounds good.
We want to unpack how it's evolved, how it's expanding. We've got market-size data, pretty detailed stuff from 2021 right through the projections to 2033.
Right, so nice long view.
Exactly. And these numbers, they aren't just, dry figures. They tell a really fascinating story about global demand, innovation.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's unpack this. Globally, the market brought in, what, over $843 billion in sales in 2021?
Just huge already back then.
Right. But what's really striking is how fast it's set to grow. They're expecting it to hit over $1 trillion by 2025.
Wow. So soon.
Yeah. And then, get this, an astonishing $1.5 trillion by 2033.
Okay, that's nearly doubling in, 12 years? That's massive growth.
It really is. So what's driving that? What are the forces pushing these numbers up so consistently?
Well, it's interesting. The sources point to a few sort of key drivers working together.
Okay.
First, there's just more demand from consumers globally. Populations are growing. Incomes are rising in many places.
So more people can afford dairy or want more of it.
Exactly. Then you've got a lot of innovation happening in dairy processing itself.
Like what kind of things?
Think about ultrafiltration for making those high-protein yogurts everyone likes, or, better pasteurization techniques that make milk last longer without tasting different.
Right. Extending shelf life, making it easier to ship and sell.
Precisely. And the third big one is this rising health consciousness. You see it everywhere. People are actively looking for protein-rich foods.
And dairy fits right in there.
It really does. So
Yeah.
you put those together, more demand, better processing, health focus, and boom, you get this kind of expansion.
That makes sense. And it gets even more interesting, I think, when you start breaking down that huge global number by region.
Oh yeah, the regional stories are quite different in some ways.
All right. Here's where it gets really interesting. Let's start with North America.
Okay. A pretty mature market, you'd think.
You would, but still growing strongly.
Mm-mm.
So North America overall, just under $244 billion in 2021.
Yep.
Projected to climb near $294 billion by 2025, and then over $415 billion by 2033.
So still very significant growth there.
Definitely. And within that, no surprise, the U.S. is the big leader. It was about $193 billion in 21, expected to grow to over $322 billion by 33.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not just the U.S. Canada and Mexico are important too. Canada is looking to pretty much double its market size by 2033, hitting over $56 billion.
Wow, double.
Yeah. And Mexico is projected to reach almost $36 billion. So like you said, a stable, established market, but still definitely climbing.
Right. Moving across the Atlantic then to Europe.
Europe's numbers, just under $160 billion in 2021.
Okay.
That's projected to rise over $191 billion by 2025 and hit nearly $269 billion by 2033.
So still growing, but maybe not quite the explosive rate of the global total.
Seems like it, yeah. What's interesting, though, is how steady the growth is across different European countries,
Yeah.
even the big established ones.
Right. You see resilience there. Germany, for example, goes from around 27 billion up to over 42 billion projected by 2033.
Okay.
France and the UK are showing similar strong, steady climbs. Both are expected to get over $30 billion by 2033.
So what's driving that in Europe? Is it different from the global picture?
Well, volume is part of it, but a lot of it seems to be value. There's such an established dairy culture,
Right. Cheese, yogurt.
Exactly. And a real focus on high-value stuff. Think artisanal cheeses, special functional yogurts, premium organic milk, things that command higher prices.
So value over just sheer volume increase sometimes.
Precisely. That helps maintain those steady revenue streams. Even smaller countries show stable growth. And interestingly, the rest of Europe category, so countries outside the big players,
Yeah.
that jumps significantly. It's set to nearly double by 2033, suggesting growth is really widespread.
Fascinating. Okay, now, the absolute powerhouse region in this whole story, Asia Pacific.
Oh, yeah. This is where the numbers get really dramatic.
Totally. It's experiencing this massive surge. It was around $335 billion back in 2021.
Which was already the biggest region.
Right. And it's projected to shoot up to over $630 billion by 2033. nearly doubling again.
Just incredible growth. And it's not just because it's a huge population base, though that's part of it.
What else is going on?
It really reflects a major shift in diets as incomes rise across the region. Dairy wasn't always a staple in many of these places,
Right.
but now it's becoming much more central for protein, for nutrition, and everyday diet.
Okay, so who's leading that charge?
Well, China is a huge factor. It's projected to go from about 105 billion up to over 186 billion by 2033.
Huge.
Japan is also a very significant market, growing to nearly 150 billion in that time frame.
Okay.
But the real standout, I think, is India. Just incredible momentum there.
What are the numbers for India?
It's projected to more than double, from roughly 53 billion in 2021 up to over 111 billion by 2033.
Wow, more than double. That's huge growth potential realized.
It really is. I mean, just think. The growth in India alone is almost like adding the entire current Canadian market.
That puts it in perspective.
Yeah.
And what makes that possible technologically?
A big factor the sources mention is improving cold chain logistics.
The refrigerated trucks, storage.
Exactly. Getting milk and yogurt and cheese safely to more people across vast areas. That infrastructure is key to unlocking this demand.
Absolutely critical for dairy. Okay, incredible transformation in Asia-Pacific. Let's journey south now. How about South America?
South America is also seeing significant growth. The market there is set to increase quite a bit, from just over 56 billion in 2021 to nearly 113 billion by 2033.
So basically doubling as well.
Pretty much, yeah. Brazil is clearly the regional giant there.
Makes sense.
Its market is expected to nearly double too, from around 20 billion up to over 40 billion by 33.
What's driving Brazil's growth specifically?
Often linked to the expanding middle class, more urbanization, people wanting more convenient packaged dairy options.
Right, lifestyle changes.
Exactly. And beyond Brazil, you've got countries like Argentina, Colombia, Peru showing really strong growth, 2 double-digit compound annual growth rates mentioned.
Okay, so solid growth across the board.
Seems like it. And that rest of South America segment also scales up significantly, again pointing to wider development, better infrastructure, changing tastes.
Got it. Okay, last stops. The Middle East and Africa. Let's start with the Middle East.
Right. The Middle East shows solid expansion, from roughly 32 billion up towards just over 50 billion between 2021 and 2033.
Okay, steady growth. Any standouts?
Countries like Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Egypt, Qatar are all mentioned as showing strong patterns. The UAE specifically is expected to cross $5 billion by 2033.
Okay, now shifting to Africa, what's the picture there?
Africa's growth is also really significant, projected basically to double in that time frame, from around 15 billion in 2021 to over 31 billion by 2033.
Doubling again. That seems to be a theme in several regions.
It is, especially in developing economies. The growth in Africa is really interesting because it reflects, again, better access thanks to improving cold chains and those ongoing dietary shifts. People actively seeking out more protein, especially in fast-growing cities. Think Johannesburg, Lagos.
Right, urbanization playing a role again.
Definitely. South Africa and Nigeria stand out in the projections. South Africa nearing 10 billion, Nigeria over 6 billion by 2033.
Okay.
And like we saw elsewhere, that rest of Africa segment is surging too, projected to hit over 15 billion. It really underlines a continent-wide trend towards more dairy as economies develop.
Wow. Okay. So we've literally circled the globe looking at dairy. We've seen some huge numbers, different regional speeds. Now that we've seen all these pieces, what are the sort of common threads? What really ties all this regional growth together? Based on the data.
Yeah, it's fascinating because despite all the local differences, the specific tastes or market structures, it really does seem to come back to a few really powerful overarching factors that the sources consistently highlight.
Like what?
Well, number one is simply expanding consumer bases. More people, rising incomes, especially in emerging economies, just more customers entering the market for dairy.
Simple supply and demand, fundamentally.
Pretty much. Then second, and we touched on this, is that crucial role of investment in cold chain logistics. You just can't overstate how vital that is for getting perishable dairy products out there, especially into new areas.
Absolutely essential for this particular industry.
Totally. And third is that consistent rising demand for protein-rich foods across the board. Health consciousness, changing diets. It just keeps reinforcing dairy's position as a global staple.
So those three things, more consumers, better logistics, and the protein push are really driving this global expansion.
Exactly. Those elements together explain why this market isn't just, ticking along, but why it's undergoing such a significant fundamental expansion worldwide.
So, okay, bringing it all together, what does this really mean for us? This deep dive, it's shown the dairy market is, well, it's not just holding steady, is it? It's expanding massively,
Yeah.
globally.
Definitely not just holding steady.
And it's driven by this really complex mix of things: economic growth,
Uh,
better fridges and trucks, changing ideas about food and health.
It really underlines the sheer scale, doesn't it? And the
Yeah.
fundamental importance of this industry. It shapes so much, from global trade patterns right down to local diets in villages and cities everywhere.
Yeah.
And understanding these trends, these numbers, it's actually pretty crucial if you're interested in, well, anything from global economics to food systems or even just thinking about the everyday stuff we eat and drink.
It touches everything.
It really does. The amount of growth, the shifts between regions, it paints a picture of a really dynamic, constantly evolving market.
It certainly does. And, it leaves us with a thought, maybe something for you, the listener, to chew on. Given this incredible growth, this global reach, especially in places like Asia Pacific and Africa that are growing so fast, how can the dairy industry keep innovating to meet all that future demand sustainably?
That's the big question, isn't it? Sustainability alongside growth.
Right. What are the new challenges or maybe the new opportunities that come with this huge expansion, particularly in those fastest growing regions?
Yeah, lots to think about there.
Definitely. Maybe think about your own habits, where you see this massive industry heading in the next 10 years based on everything we've talked about today. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're getting into something pretty fundamental, but also, wow, constantly changing the global dairy market. Our mission here is really to unpack the key stuff: what's driving growth, the big challenges, and, the innovations that are shaking things up.
Exactly. And we're looking at the whole spectrum, really. It's not just traditional milk and cheese. We're also talking plant-based alternatives, which are huge now, and even how digital tech is changing, how everything gets to your fridge. It's a big picture.
Okay, let's unpack that. Dairy seems to be everywhere, right? Coffee shops, supermarkets. But what's really fueling this surge in consumption worldwide? Is it just more people or something else?
It's a mix of things, actually. I mean, yeah, basic population growth and more people living in cities. That's a big part of it, especially in emerging economies. As incomes rise there, diets change. But it's also about how we think about food now. There's this real nutritional awareness. People are actively looking for the good stuff in dairy, the calcium, protein, essential vitamins. Think fitness folks, people focused on like targeted nutrition, BCAAs for muscle recovery, that kind of
Oh,
thing.
that's interesting. So it's moved beyond just drink your milk for calcium to something much more specialized, almost performance focused. And I guess a lot of this isn't just happening at home, right? In our own kitchens. There's another side to it.
Oh, absolutely. A huge driver, maybe one people don't think about much, is the food service industry. Quick service restaurants, cafes. I mean, just think about the sheer amount of cheese on pizzas globally. Or milkshakes, ice cream in fast food places, lattes. The volume there is massive. Dairy is really a backbone for so many menus out there, and it's not standing still either. Product innovation is key. Brands are moving into organic, lactose-free, different flavors, high-protein versions, really catering to all sorts of different needs.
Right. So you've got population, nutrition focus, that whole food service engine.
Yeah.
Makes sense. But okay, here's where it gets really interesting. No market's perfect. What are the biggest roadblocks, the things holding the dairy industry back right now?
Yeah, this is where the complexity really shows. A major one, maybe underestimated in, say, North America or Europe, is lactose intolerance. Globally, it's huge. Maybe around 70% of the world's population, especially across Asia and Africa, has some level of it. That puts a real cap on traditional dairy growth in those big, high-growth regions. And then there's just the economic ups and downs. Raw milk prices, they can swing wildly. Plus, supply chain issues are constant. Feed costs go up and down. Transport can be tricky. And climate change, droughts, floods, they can really disrupt production and push costs way up.
70%.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a massive number. So it's a biological barrier for a huge chunk of the planet, not
Yeah.
just, a preference. And on top of the health and economic stuff, what about how people see the industry? Is there pressure from that angle too?
Absolutely. The environmental spotlight is intense. Dairy farming gets talked about a lot for its environmental footprint, greenhouse gas emissions, land use, sometimes deforestation concerns, water usage. It's significant. And as consumers and governments get more focused on sustainability, that really shapes public opinion and even policy. It demands change. And then you just can't ignore the competition from plant-based alternatives. It's real and it's growing fast. Oat milk, almond, soy, coconut. These products are really hitting the mark for vegans, people with intolerance, or just folks who are trying to make more environmentally conscious choices. I was just in a coffee shop, the other day, and they must have had 5 different non-dairy milks. It really shows you how much choice there is now.
Yeah, that little anecdote says a lot, doesn't it? That
Yeah.
explosion of choice. Okay, so we got these strong growth drivers, but also these pretty serious challenges. What does it all mean for the future then? What are the fascinating new trends? How are we going to be consuming dairy or, dairy-like products going forward?
Well, this is where the industry is really trying to adapt to innovate. One big trend is functional and fortified dairy. So, products with added benefits. Think probiotics for gut health, omega-3s, extra protein, maybe immune-boosting vitamins. It's like Dairy Plus, creating a whole new health angle. And alongside that, there's a really strong pull towards organic and clean label stuff. People want to know what's in their food. They want transparency, natural ingredients, fewer additives, and increasingly, proof of good animal welfare.
So it's getting much more sophisticated, not just basic nutrition, but this whole package of health, transparency, even ethics. What about just getting the products, how we buy them?
Yeah, convenience is king, right? Especially for busy city dwellers. So, ready-to-drink options, RTD, are booming. Protein shakes you can grab and go, smoothies, single-serve packs, things that just fit into a hectic lifestyle. And finally, digital, it's really changing the game. Direct-to-consumer apps, websites, subscription boxes, they're making it way easier to get fresh dairy, especially in big cities, and let brands build like a direct relationship with customers. That's pretty new for the sector.
What a fascinating picture. It really is this dynamic balance, isn't it, between sticking with tradition, but also pushing innovation, dealing with health issues, but still offering indulgent products, and trying to be sustainable while operating at a massive scale. It's complex.
It really is. And it makes you think. We see digital connecting farms and consumers. We see plant-based challenging everything. But looking ahead, maybe 10, 20 years, how might all these shifts, the tech, the changing tastes, how might they fundamentally reshape our entire agricultural system, our global food supply chains? It's a big question.
That is a really big question to ponder. A perfect thought to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive today. And as always, we hope you stay curious.